Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today is going to be another stitch with me. I think it's going to be, because I probably have off tomorrow from work and possibly Friday, I'll probably do diamond paint with me's for those days. Um, It is just a little bit easier, believe it or not, for me to do the stitch with me's. And as the arbitration ramps up, what I've been doing is recording the voiceover in the morning, and then we have an hour lunch break every day. I've been recording the stitching then because I usually can have that hour break. I don't know going forward if I'll always be able to do it that way, but because I've been so tired at night, like last night, I only stitched for like 45 minutes and I didn't record it. So I just stitched, went downstairs, went to bed. But yeah, so yesterday we had the arbitration, and in the morning, so we have 4 editors like myself, and then we have 2 proofreaders. One of the proofreaders doesn't work with us all the time, so she is not really used to our procedures, but everyone needs to be signed into the file, like 10 minutes before we start, because my boss sends us an invitation to the file. Well, everyone's in there except this one proofreader. And we start and she's still not in there. Half hour goes by and she's still not in there. And I message her asking, where are you? We started a half hour ago. I put a message in the group message that we use to communicate during the day, and just nothing. So I tell the other proofreader, I'm sorry, but you may have to proofread this today all yourself. And that's a lot to throw on one person when we are used to having another person to help. And then, of course, an hour and a half go by, and I'm like, well, I gotta let my boss know. And I was like, so-and-so isn't shown up to the file, because she called me on a break. And she was like, what? And I said, do you know anybody else I can proofread? Because literally, I didn't know if this person got into an accident, if they had died. Who knows, right? With no response. I even went so far as to call her cell phone, and it just rang and rang and rang. So an hour and 45 minutes go by, and she comes into the group message and says, oh, I'm here. I said, where have you been? And I get no response. So I send her a private message, a private text message. Where have you been? We are an hour and 45 minutes. It's like showing up to an outside job an hour and 45 minutes late and not calling. So no response. And she's like, well, where do I start proofreading? And I'm just like, I said, please explain to the team where you have been. I started to be like an asshole at that point. And she's like, oh, I had a family emergency and I didn't have my phone. Who doesn't have their phone in this day and age with them? I was livid, I'll admit. I was just like, really right now? Okay. You need to let somebody know. If she would have sent us a quick message and said, oh, I'm not going to be in the file for an hour and a half, I wouldn't have panicked. I wrote them back and I said, you realize I panicked thinking that the other proofreader was going to have to proof this whole day by herself. So the beginning of the morning was not the greatest, but the day improved and I was actually able to be done like 10 minutes early because they ended 10 minutes early. So, and my boss improved the way that I keep track of the time daily. Before I was having to manually calculate in my head how many minutes somebody was on the record. Well, she did an Excel spreadsheet where all I have to do is punch in the start and end time and it automatically calculates it. Yay. Piece of cake. So that was really good that she did that. But yeah, after today, starting next week, we have it 2 weeks in a row, then a break, and then we have it 2 weeks in a row again, and then a break, and then one more week. So we have it 6 out of 8 weeks. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Let me look at my calendar real quick. Yeah, we have it. After this week, we have it the next 2 weeks straight. Then we have off the week of Thanksgiving. Then we have it 3 weeks straight. Then we have off the week of Christmas, and then we have the last week. So we have 6 weeks out of the next 8 weeks. We have it. So that's going to be, I'm going to be tired, motherfucker. Yeah. So Bill and I had cauliflower crust pizza that is Costco brand. We had a sample of it when we were there on Saturday, and man, was it good. So he cooked that, and that was a quick dinner. And then we got in the hot tub, and then it was bedtime. Tucked him in, and then I came in here and stitched a little bit, and then went down and I read some of my book. Oh my God, the book is so good. I'm just so curious what like the real story is, because I feel like there are bits and pieces that they're not revealing to the reader yet. And it's Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. So it's very good. And I have it linked in the description box below. So today's story is titled, Killed by Suspect Who Was Already Dead. What? Okay. When a woman's body was found in London, forensic experts matched DNA with the person suspected of killing her, which was unusual, as the suspect had died 3 weeks before the victim. Familial DNA, maybe? Was it a family member? Okay. How long is this story? It's not too long. In London in 1997, the body of a murdered female was discovered in a park and taken to the closest coroner's office. The woman, who has never been named, appeared to have put up a fight with her attacker, as there were scrapings of flesh underneath her fingernails. This meant that with new advances in DNA technology in the 1990s, it was going to be a simple case to solve. But when the results came back from the National DNA Database, the investigating officers were gobsmacked. The female killer of the woman had died 3 weeks earlier, and she was in a freezer in the same coroner's office in London. And then the case got even stranger. So the real-life mystery, this mystery continued to unfold. The suspect had been killed 3 weeks earlier by another unidentified killer, which was already being investigated by a different team of detectives. The murders had taken place in different parts of London. The two dead women shared no connection with each other, and there was nothing to suggest they had even met or been near each other in their day-to-day lives. The investigation jumped to the obvious conclusion that the DNA must have been contaminated. That's interesting. How? So did somebody else kill the other woman as well? And her DNA was on this person? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the killer killed the other woman. She scratched him and got herself on him, and this guy didn't take a bath or a shower? I don't know. It's so bizarre, right? So the scenario didn't make sense and nothing added up. Yeah. So enter national forensic expert Dr. Mike Silverman, who cited this particular case as one of the strangest of his long and illustrious career. It was his job to find out if a mistake had been made with the coroner's office or somewhere in between. The first scenario was that the samples had been mixed up or contaminated. Possible, sure. It seemed likely that the fingernail samples had come from the first victim, and they were tested again to make sure there had not been an accidental switch. Just by looking at the fingernails, it was obvious there had been no error. The victim had a painted leopard print pattern on her nails, which was present on the rest of her fingers. Even though they were tested again, it came back with the same results. Next, Silverman checked through the detailed record keeping to see if the samples had been mixed up, but again, everything had been logged correctly. There were no errors in the records, even though different coroners had been involved with the two different bodies. Forensic autopsies are only carried out if the victim is a result of murder or suspicious death. They tend to be far more involved than general autopsies and include toxicology tests, examinations of blood and organs, and stomach contents. The body of the first victim had been on ice in the mortuary freezer for the previous 3 weeks while the detectives on that case carried out their investigation. Silverman looked more closely at both victims and where they were autopsied. Both females had undergone an autopsy at the same mortuary despite arriving there many weeks apart. It turned out that the first victim had been removed from the freezer 1 day before the second victim had arrived. The forensic investigator had taken additional nail clippings from the first victim to help with the detectives' inquiries. The following day, the same pair of scissors were used to cut the nails of the second victim. There you go. Despite the scissors being disinfected and cleaned between uses, Silverman became concerned that some DNA from the first victim had remained. He knew that simply touching an object could leave enough genetic material to carry out a successful DNA analysis. DNA was still a relatively new thing, and although strict rules were being met, there were many mistakes still getting through. So Silverman sent the scissors off to be analyzed, and when the results came back, he wasn't pleased because there wasn't just one DNA profile or two, as he had expected, but 3. The real killer, I'm guessing. So by this point, the press had already picked up on the story and were running with tales of the time travel killer. Oh God. But the story of the time travel killer never made sense to Silverman. How could it be time travel when the first victim and suspect was already dead? When the DNA results came back, there were traces of the first and second victim on them, which meant the scissors had contaminated the second victim's nails. The third DNA results belonged to a deceased female who had her nails cut a day before the first victim. All female? When Silverman checked the autopsy knives, they too were found to have traces of different people's DNA. Outraged, he sent an email to every single coroner, mortuary, and forensic pathologist in the country. How would you do that? That must have been a long email list. The memo would result in big changes with future cases involving DNA, not just in the UK, but across the world. The answer was simple: disposable scissors, which had to be placed into the bag with the nail clippings. Yeah, there you go. It sounds obvious, but even in the 1990s, DNA was still finding a foothold with investigators and courtrooms and undergoing criticism at all levels. Even today, DNA profiles can be constructed from just a few cells of human genetic material, which makes cross-contamination even more likely, despite robust methods in place to prevent errors. Even Silverman admits that DNA evidence is very much open to interpretation unless the evidence is sufficient enough to eliminate the possibility of any cross-contamination. The disposable scissors in a bag method is still being used today. Interesting. That guy changed history, right? As for the 2 female victims, their killers were never found and their murders remain unsolved. But that's so weird that they thought that other woman killed her, right? It's so bizarre. Okay, that is the end of the story, and this is a very short one today, but we are going to read the Daily Stoics email. And it is called It Can Happen to You. He was at the top of the world, one of the best in his craft, beloved by millions. Then at 43, he was struck down by colon cancer. Because Chadwick Boseman kept his diagnosis private, except to his loved ones, this news surprised many people. A lot of them had the typical reaction. How tragic, they said. What a loss. It's not fair. All of that is true and reasonable, but almost no one had the less pleasant reaction one can, and Seneca would argue should have, to unexpected loss. No one said, oh, that easily could have been me. This, Seneca said, is the thought we must have when we see the coroner come pick up our neighbor, when we hear that somebody's life savings were stolen by a fraudster, or that they were taken to jail on trumped-up charges. The same. There, but for the grace of God go I. Seneca would have probably used the word fate or fortune instead of God, but we're talking about the same thing. What can happen to anybody can happen to everybody. What can happen to somebody you know can happen to you. You are not immune. You are not special. No amount of fame or power or talent exempts us. Everyone gets dealt bad luck. Being young, being well-liked, having already been through so much, or having never been through anything at all, these are all irrelevant considerations. What is past is prologue and besides the point. Just like the list of numbers that have hit at the roulette table just before you walk up. They are facts, but they are not fate. They are not predictive or protective. When your number is up, that's it. The events of the world are trying constantly to remind us of this, yet so many of us don't want to listen. We downright refuse to listen. Why is this happening to me? We whine and wail into the void. Because it can, that's why. Because it happens to people every single day, and you should have known that by now. You know, they're exactly right. That may be a little harsh in the way that they worded that, but someone that my mom knows is a good example. They don't believe in the COVID vaccine, which is everyone's right, but they contracted COVID not too long ago, and they're in denial that they have it. They think that the test was false, that they don't believe they have it. That how did I get it? You could have gotten it anywhere, right? You can get it anywhere. But people that also think, oh, I'll never be in a car accident, or I'll never have blah, blah, blah. I would have never thought at 43 that I would have had breast cancer, but it did. And it's always in the back of my mind that it can crop up again, and it can crop up anywhere in my body. So I never think, oh, because I had it once, I can't get it again. That's crazy pants. No. So go forth and enjoy your life, but be aware, right? Okay, I did have someone buy me 2 coffees, which I very much appreciated. Angela Callahan. And she says, thank you for always being so real and for answering my stitching questions. You are one of my very favorites, and I look forward to your vlogs every week. Thank you for all that you do. Angela, thank you so very much for that and for your kind note. It is very, very much appreciated. So I hope you guys all have a fantastic Tuesday. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.